Car Lifestyle Podcast
with host
Seth Rose from Exotics Rally,
TMINUS, Gabe Florido
from Car Lifestyle.
Welcome back to the Car Lifestyle Podcast. My name is Seth Rose, and my co-host is TMINUS.
Yeah, I don't know. I never know what to say. Why can't I just say hello? I don't know. It's like too mundane.
Okay, you ready to start over? My co-host TMINUS.
I don't know.
Just say hello.
All right, hello.
Okay, welcome back. This is podcast number 8. And this week we have a special guest who is not only a friend of mine, but has also done some business with me for unfortunate reasons sometimes. We have a very prominent attorney from the New York Metropolitan area. We welcome Frank Desousa.
Thank you for having me, guys, here. I appreciate the invite to come down and talk with you guys tonight.
Yeah, Frank, thanks for taking some time out of your busy schedule. I know that court is not in session right now.
Well, we have night court sometimes.
Night court, some villages, right?
Yes.
Okay. But so Frank came in to discuss with us a lot of different legal issues and I guess procedural issues and different aspects of driving, speeding, any type of tickets, anything from DUI, DWI, and anything that runs the gamut in that nature. So why don't we start off with Frank, maybe you can give us a little background of yourself.
Sure. I've been an attorney for the last 23 years. My office is venued over in Hempstead. We've been there for about 20 years.
So for our listeners, that's Hempstead, New York.
Hempstead, New York, Long Island. Been there again for about 20 years. Graduated Torah Law School in 1992. Basically, I started doing traffic and criminal law just basically by accident. My brothers would come to me with some traffic tickets who were younger. Started helping them out with some tickets and realized I might be able to make a little bit of a living representing some people and taking care of their traffic tickets in the local traffic courts here on Long Island. And
well, definitely in New York,
City.
You can make a living doing this.
Absolutely. We have, I don't know if you aware, but 9 million people living on this one little tiny island.
How many tickets a year do you think you handle?
I would say thousands. I wouldn't even be able to guess, to tell you the truth. It's definitely a volume business. Any day we go to court, we probably have anywhere between 10 to 30 cases on any given day. Okay. Between the district courts, traffic courts, and night courts.
Wow.
A lot of tickets.
That's crazy.
And that's one attorney.
Right.
That's one attorney.
I almost feel like, how do you do it? Like, do you now have enough work? Is it planned years ahead?
Not necessarily years ahead, but at least with respect to the traffic violations bureaus, these cases can be adjourned anywhere from 6 to, we've just finished a case from 2013. So up to 2-3 years these cases can take. And it's really based upon the officer's availability. Sometimes we go into court today, the case will be adjourned for 6 months because the guy's booked up for trials between now and then.
Let's kind of start from the beginning. So that's a little history on how you got into it just by helping out your family and friends?
Correct.
Okay. And the law that you practice generally revolves around tickets?
Correct. My specific 2 areas are traffic tickets and criminal violations. Most of my criminal representation are cases involving the vehicle traffic law. So it's you talking, reckless driving, unauthorized speed contest, aggravated unlicensed operation in motor vehicle, which is driving with suspended or revoked licenses, things of that nature.
Okay. So most of our listeners, because we're involved in the automotive world and a lot of exotic cars and tuner cars and things of that nature. So all the speed freaks, a lot of guys that do road rallies. Most of the people that are listening have probably gotten more speeding tickets than anything in their life. So being that we're here in New York and Long Island, would you say that there is a zero tolerance for speeding, or there's a little bit of tolerance?
I wouldn't say there's a zero tolerance. Usually you have to realize most state troopers, highway patrol, local PD, they have, I would say, like a 10 to 15 mile per hour leeway in terms of pulling over people. So if you're on the Southern State Parkway and you're doing 69, 70,
in a
55 zone, most likely you're not going to get stopped.
Yeah, because I was in Virginia and 1 mile per hour over Right? What was it? One over?
It was one, yeah.
It was one over. They
Right.
said it was like reckless or something. It was like
Reckless?
absolutely insane.
Probably, but this also didn't probably help that you had New York plates on your car.
Oh,
No,
I'm sure that
definitely.
didn't help. Yeah.
yeah.
And of course, I had one of those lovely photo, plate blockers on the plate where you couldn't read the plate.
Yeah.
Right.
And my radar detector was unplugged though in Virginia, so that's important. But okay, so speeding in New York, you're saying there's usually about a 10 to 15 mile per hour window.
Correct.
Okay.
Anything
so,
after that, they're going to pull you over and most likely issue a
That, of course,
violation.
depends on the officer's leniency.
Absolutely.
Yeah, as an individual.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, they have what we call discretion.
Now, what would you say would be the proper procedure if you were to get pulled over? Like me, for instance, if a cop comes out after me, and I know he's got me. I mean, I always have a radar detector, so that thing is just blaring away saying, dumb fuck, pull over. So there I go, and I usually will pull over before they even turn on the lights.
Correct.
That's just me
So do
personally.
I.
I'll pull over before they turn on the lights.
Yeah, why waste
I put
time?
the car into park. I usually shut it off. There have been a few times where I'll roll down the window. I'll take
Put the keys on the roof?
I'll put them on the roof of the car, and they come up and say, "Oh my God, have you been through this before?"
Yeah.
And I say, "No, actually, I have a lot of friends that are on the job, and I try to
the
work
same
it
thing.
out that way." But I mean, what would you recommend?
Right. You know the drill. So basically, first, the officers don't want to chase you. You don't want to aggravate them and basically take off, which unfortunately happens in a lot of motorcyclists. For some reason, motorcyclists think, you know what? This is my road. I'm
They're
a lot
like,
faster
"I'm
than
outta
this
here."
patrol car.
Yeah, absolutely.
They juice it up, and inevitably, a mile, 2 miles later, they find these guys wrecked on the side of the road
Oh,
somewhere,
yeah, that can
tortured.
happen too, yeah.
I've had a lot of clients have that situation where they take off, and instead of just getting a speeding ticket, now they're going to, number one, probably be in the hospital
Right.
if they survive.
Right.
Number two, they're going to be charged with evading the police,
yeah.
okay, which is a misdemeanor charge. We had a guy about 9 months ago, a good friend of mine's son got involved in something like this. It was him and another motorcyclist. They both took off. They ended up tapping motorcycles down by the Ocean Parkway where the water tower is.
Right. Sure.
And they crashed. The other guy got hurt. My guy got hurt. But he ended up doing 30 days, and it was his first offense. So
Wow.
you go from
That's considered a misdemeanor?
a misdemeanor, absolutely.
Evading or eluding?
Eluding, trying to get away from the police is a
Wow, because
misdemeanor charge.
I've been arrested for that twice in other states, and it's a felony. So New York's pretty lenient then.
Well, I wouldn't say lenient because the guy did 30 days. So I wouldn't necessarily
for
lenient.
offense,
Yeah.
That's pretty
Yeah.
crazy.
When I was arrested in Oregon, it was a
is.
felony evading, eluding.
Right. So anyway, getting back to that, first thing you want to do is pull over fairly quickly. You want to show the guy some respect. Pull over, shut the car off. If you can, put your hands on the wheel so they can see your hands
Right.
on the wheel. Because you got to realize when a police officer is pulling you over, they have no idea who
you
they're
are,
pulling over.
what you're doing,
Okay,
what's in
and
the
just
car.
a little
Sure.
background, like Jeffrey Dahmer, or the mass murderer.
Right.
They ended up catching him based upon a vehicle traffic law stop.
Right.
They
And he had
stopped
the
him in a
bodies
pickup,
in
and
the
he had
trunk.
the bodies in the back of
yeah.
the pickup truck.
Joe Rifkin. Joel
Joel,
right,
that's
yeah.
what it was, yes.
Yeah,
and had the bodies in the back.
Right,
and
pickup truck.
And
Yes.
had some sort of tarp over it, and there was a foot or a sneaker or something hanging out in
He
the back.
actually got pulled over
For like a crack taillight. Yeah.
right on Old Country Road in front of the courthouse.
What?
Yes.
Yes.
Wait,
I
that
think,
happened
yeah,
here?
for a broken. Yeah, I think it was a broken taillight.
There were state troopers
That
that
happened here?
Yeah, it happened here in
I didn't
Long
know
Island.
that happened
He
here.
was a serial killer.
Something happened with Jeffrey Dahmer also.
Yeah, I don't remember the exact details.
Yeah, but
They
Joe
definitely did
Rifkin,
that.
they looked in the back of the pickup. He had like a little cap on. They looked in the back and they saw like a foot hanging out. I said, maybe
Doesn't
that's
seem
something.
Right. Yeah,
That's
doesn't
so
seem right.
crazy.
So anyway, these cops, imagine yourself, you're pulling over a motorist late at night. You have no idea if this guy's a drug dealer, if he's carrying guns, knives, or whatever it is. So they want to see that your hands are on the wheel where they can see them. What they don't like to see, which I made the mistake once, was start rifling through your glove box looking for your insurance card,
They
your
think you're going
registration
for a
card,
gun. Oh, yeah.
and
Right.
your license. They
Right,
think you're
totally.
looking for something.
Absolutely.
Right. And then at that point in time, they're going to, they're coming up to you with the gun
Right.
drawn, as opposed to just coming up to you asking you for your license, registration, etc.
Right.
So you definitely want to pull over quickly. You want to show them your hands, show them some respect. When they come up to the car, answer their questions politely, respectfully. You don't want to get into confrontation with these guys on the side of the road. You don't
Right.
want to start a fight. They don't want to argue with you. They don't want to go back and forth. One thing you don't want to say to the officer, why did you pull me over?
Right.
Okay, because then he's now all of a sudden you just
He's
started
on
the
the defensive.
conversation
Right.
on a bad note, and I know you're going to do that with me, as a client.
Which
I don't want you to be my client.
I actually
You're
did that
annoying.
once. Do you remember when I almost like charged a Suffolk County sheriff one time? Do you remember? I think you were with me. T. I got pulled. We were doing a road rally.
I
And we
don't
were going
remember
out
that.
east, and I did absolutely nothing wrong. Used my signal and everything, and they roadblocked us.
Yeah.
You don't remember this?
What were you in? The Superleggera?
Yeah, I was in my Lambo, and they roadblocked us, and I was just so steamed that they stopped us from moving. And nobody had done anything wrong. They just got reports, crazy guys out driving, fast cars, this and that. I got out, started yelling at the cop, and he actually got scared.
I remember that, yes.
He actually got scared.
He actually let us rock.
And he let us leave.
Let you go?
Yeah, he actually got scared.
Because he really didn't have anything on anybody. He was just, okay, these are a bunch of brightly colored cars. We just got umpteen 911 calls. This is definitely them. But by the time we had gotten to him or he got to us,
that was the exception to the rule.
The speed limit.
Correct.
That's the exception. I would not charge a cop by any means.
Right.
And I wouldn't yell at a cop or anything, but he went to grab his pistol because he actually got nervous because I was screaming at him.
Right. And he actually was like, okay, well then get out of here.
Let
me ask you a question, Frank.
Sure.
I heard this, I don't know, maybe a year and a half ago, and I don't know if you know or you're familiar with the all the traffic laws within the confines of the 5 boroughs. Are you?
Yes.
Okay. Is it, and this is what I had heard, is it anything over 90 miles an hour, can that be charged as attempted vehicular homicide?
90 miles an hour, just the speeding ticket by itself, just the speed.
Yeah.
90 miles an hour vehicular homicide?
No,
absolutely not.
I don't think
no.
Attempted vehicular homicide?
No.
Most troopers here on Long Island, I will say, if you're going over 90, 95, they're probably going to write you up for a reckless driving, which is a misdemeanor.
I had heard that was the law, and that that you could be charged that if in fact.
Yeah, no, I've never heard that, but I've always wondered, is there a threshold to be arrested? Everybody always says double the speed limit, you get arrested. Is there a certain threshold?
There really isn't. It's all up to the officer's discretion. Absolutely.
Okay.
Really?
If you're going 95 miles an hour and it's a straight away and there's nobody around you, he's probably not going to write you up for a reckless. If you're going 90 miles an hour on the Long Island Expressway at 4:30 in the afternoon on a Friday and you're zipping out of the HOV lane, yeah, you know what? That's reckless driving.
Yeah.
You're going to hurt somebody.
What's the fastest speed you've seen on a ticket?
Fastest speed I've seen was in a motorcycle. And I think it was approximately 140 miles an hour in a 55 zone.
That's it?
That was it.
It's kind of weak.
Yeah.
That is pretty weak.
Well, you have to realize the officers' patrol cars, number one, are only calibrated up to 90 miles per hour. Okay, so after that, they really can't determine the speed accurately because they are only calibrated up to 90. The radar gun, you should be able, but in a moving vehicle, he's not going to be able to tag it at 140 miles per hour.
Really?
He can do what we call a visual estimation on the speed, but again, it's not going to probably be that accurate going 140 miles an hour. We had a situation where a motorcyclist was traveling on the Meadowbrook State Parkway, a group of motorcycles, a couple of motorcycles ahead was speeding. One guy got into an accident. My clients pulled over to try to help the guy who got into an accident, who actually also happened to be off-duty New York City police officers.
Wow.
And the trooper came up on the scene, and these guys said, listen, we're on the job. We're off-duty right now, but can you call an ambulance? This guy needs help. And he says, no, I need your license and registration cards right now. He goes, what are you talking about? This guy over here just got into a motorcycle accident.
Right.
He's hurt. He needs an ambulance. Why are you asking me for a license registration? And he ended up writing him speeding tickets for him and his friend. I think it was 110. The other guy 115 that he wrote up for him, which, in my opinion, take care of the injured guy first.
Yeah,
absolutely.
certain priorities.
On top of that,
especially if they're on the job.
Yeah, absolutely. And,
interesting. So you seem to deal with a lot of motorcycles.
Motorcycles, some fast cars, and a lot of stupid young drivers, inexperienced drivers.
Let me ask you a take on a certain situation that occurred last year, because I don't know how it's wound up. I don't know if there's been any resolution to it whatsoever. But do you recall in New York City there was a motorcycle gathering, and there was a gentleman in a Range Rover who felt threatened, and he ran over a motorcyclist.
Oh boy, I don't know how you feel about this, but I know how I feel. Yeah,
You're familiar with that? It was all over the
am.
news. Okay, so now, there were so many different things on the news that the Range Rover acted, reckless, that he drove over the guy, and then the motorcyclist, a couple of other guys caught up with him, dragged him out of the car, and beat the crap out of him.
Right.
So, it's kind of hard to determine what came first. There's so many different video clips out there, but they wound up arresting most of the motorcyclists.
Correct.
And charging them, and the person in the Range Rover wound up being a victim, yet he ran somebody over who's now crippled for life.
Right.
Yeah.
I understand, but you have to realize this guy, I think, had his family in his car. He had his wife,
he did.
a couple of kids in the car, and I
didn't
know
know
if
that,
that's
though.
me driving I'm not going to stand there and let some motorcyclist crash into my car or cut me off or do anything else like that. I understand, you're trying to defend your family, and rightfully so. I'm not saying you should run over one of these motorcyclists, but the guy kind of blocked him in, and he thought that, he feared for his life. At that point in time, you fear for your life. Right. You should be able to react.
So you agree that legally it was justified?
I think it was justified, absolutely. You got to realize whenever an officer, let's say, pulls his gun, he has to, justify pulling his weapon. Either the other person had a weapon or was charging him with a knife or something else like that. So you sort of have to justify it. I think he was justified in doing what he did. Although, looking back on it, I'm sure he regrets it. But it's a sad situation.
Yeah, terrible situation.
And I've been stuck in traffic involving a whole bunch of motorcyclists, and what you got to try to do? You slow down and you give these guys way.
That's
what
my
you
issue.
do. Yeah, right.
He didn't do that. He got on the highway and he was like, you know what? I'm being blocked into my lane. I want to go faster. I'm going to go around these guys. So he was aggressive. I know a lot of the guys that were on the ride that day. And I know their original story, and I know. I'm sure there's people that embellished, and I know a few people that wouldn't have embellished, and there were legitimate, solid guys, and they said that he got on the highway. And, listen, if you got your wife and your 2-year-old daughter in the car and you see 100 bikes, are you really going to get into traffic with them? Or are you just going to
pull over?
Rock?
Yeah, pull over and give way. Yeah,
common
absolutely.
sense. Like, this is your wife and your child.
Unfortunately, in today's day and age, common sense doesn't prevail always.
Correct. It doesn't.
You're right. You're right.
And thank God for, people doing stupid, silly things. Otherwise, all the lawyers in New York State would be out of business.
This is correct.
Which is, realistically, that's it. We represent, a lot of stupid criminals,
Right.
Yeah. I had a good friend of mine. He was down in Florida. He was on Percocet, Vicodin, and all sorts of stuff. And he decided he wanted to steal a palm tree from his doctor's office.
I love it.
He went there with a chain, his dog, and he chained the palm tree to the back of his truck and then took off and dragged it to his house. And all they basically had to do, first off, it was all on camera. And it ended up on on the world's stupidest criminals.
Did it really?
Yeah, it did.
Awesome.
And you just basically all you could have done is follow the line of dirt back to his house where he had the palm tree. So
that's a great story.
Again, thank God for silly, stupid, messed up people.
Right.
Yeah. Otherwise, you would have no income.
Correct. Exactly.
Thank God for people like us. So getting back to so that's getting pulled over. You should definitely pull over. Show them as much respect as possible. Obviously now you get the unfortunate incident, you get written a ticket.
Right.
What is the best course of action for a ticket? Because I know some people are just like, screw it. I don't want to deal with it. I'm just going to plead guilty and send it in. I mean, I think that's the most foolish thing in the world to do.
Oh, it is, because you're not thinking straight at that point. You're frustrated. You got the ticket, and you're like, it's just easier to plead guilty and pay it. But people don't realize that there are points associated with it, that there are fines associated with it, that we have this new thing called a driver assessment responsibility fee that Department of Motor Vehicles instituted about 14 years ago, where they're charging you,
really?
$300 for every 6 points you get on your license, and another $25 per point thereafter for up to 3 years. So, in my opinion, it's just another tax.
Oh yeah,
by New York State. You can call it a driver assessment responsibility fee, but it's just another tax. So the worst thing you can do is also ignore it. If you ignore it, everybody thinks you just ignore it, throw it out, it'll go away. It doesn't.
Oh, I've got a great question for you. What about all these silly services you find online who says, you know what, if the fine is $150, send them $151?
Oh, yeah.
There is some truth to that. And I'll explain that to you. If you don't pay the fine, the violation never gets entered onto your DMV record.
Correct.
Only once you pay the fine basically closes out the ticket in most traffic court systems.
But it goes back to the date that the ticket was issued, or conviction?
It will go back. It will always go back to the date of violation for DMV purposes.
Okay.
For insurance purposes, you got to realize the insurance companies can't realistically, and from a common sense point, they can't increase or surcharge your insurance rates because there's nothing on your license
yet. You haven't been convicted.
You haven't been convicted yet. So they use the date of conviction. DMV will always use the date of violation.
Gotcha.
Okay.
So that could be used. I mean, I tried that.
Absolutely.
I've heard that.
It could be, but then the problem is 3 months later, they are going to send you a bill in the mail for the fine that's due, and they'll also send you a nice little suspension or impending suspension notice, we call it, from the Department of Motor Vehicles saying this person failed to pay their fine, suspend this client's license on May 5th if he doesn't come to court and pay that fine.
Right.
So it will work for a little bit, a short period of time, but eventually it will catch up to you.
Yeah, I've heard about people saying, if your fine's $150, you send in a check for $151,
Right, and then you never cash the check.
They'll send you back a check for the difference for $1, and if you never deposit that,
that's not true.
That's
not true.
Okay.
First off, the Nassau County Traffic Court at 16
They'll
Cooper
just
Street
keep your money.
will never refund you any money. Yeah, you're not getting. They'll change the fine in their system
So this is
when
like
you overpay,
this is a
and they'll
total-
keep your
That's
they'll keep your tip money. I like to
this
call
is a
it.
total urban myth.
Yes, absolutely.
So I just want to debunk that now because so many people are like, I'm just going to send them an extra $1. Watch. And so,
Yeah.
Okay, so
So there is some truth to it, but there is some false information
I've
as
been
well.
paying that assessment fee for quite some years. I just wasn't
because you're
aware
a total
that-
fuck up.
Oh yeah. I follow in your footsteps, fruitcake.
I have a clean New York State
Yeah,
driver's
clean.
license.
Yeah, it's real clean. Yeah.
And it's under my name, actually.
Yeah. Oh, you should be so proud of yourself. You're only 60.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very nice.
But I didn't know that it was around for 14 years.
Yes, yeah. It started in I want to say 2001. The driver assessment responsibility
Long Island?
fee in New York State.
New York State. Oh, really?
It's all over New York State. Maybe we can talk about a couple of things regarding
Yeah.
what
Go
to
ahead.
do
You got
to
the floor.
avoid getting pulled over in
Oh,
the
go right
first
ahead.
place, which
You've
I think
got
is
the
probably a
floor.
couple
You
of
take
tips.
the floor.
One of the things you should do is always make sure the car is in great, proper operating order. Meaning, by that I mean your headlights both work, your taillights work. You have nothing hanging from your rear view mirror. You have no aftermarket bright lights, blue lights, which the officers hate on the cars to pull you over for inappropriate lights on a parkway.
Do fix-it tickets still exist?
What's that?
Like a fix-it ticket? Does that still exist? Like you get a ticket for a headlight out and you get it fixed and you can get it dismissed?
Yes,
Does that still exist?
absolutely.
It
That
does.
still exists, but the Nassau County Traffic Court and Suffolk County Traffic Court will charge you what we call a nice dismissal fee.
Surcharge,
Again,
right?
a surcharge and another tax on top of that, so you'd be paying a dismissal fee for it. But
Friend
that
of
does
mine just got
that does work.
14 in a row.
Wow.
Yeah. He's a real winner.
Yeah, no kidding.
What else a lot of people talk about? The covered license plates.
Yes.
Everybody's always online looking at researching these things, how to avoid the
sell them. I sell them.
red light camera things, right?
I sell them and they work.
Now, they do work, but the problem is the officer's going to pull you over and he's going to give you a ticket for a covered license plate. You're not supposed to have any covering
Anything obstructing
on
the
it.
plate,
Right.
right?
So you're not supposed to have any
Actually,
material like
from
that.
what I was told, and I could be wrong, but you're not even supposed to have a license plate frame technically.
Correct.
You're
Yeah,
not supposed
to have a
because
frame.
you're not supposed to be obstructing any view of the license plate whatsoever. So even like I used to have a big towing company, and we used to have vanity plates. So right on the bottom it says tow truck. So we'd get nice thick license plate frames, and then we'd hop on the parkway because you're not supposed to have a commercial vehicle on the parkway.
Right.
So we would do that to try to get around it, and we were successful. We'd never get pulled over because the frame would cover where it said tow truck. But technically, it's a violation.
Correct.
Okay.
Absolutely. What else? The police officer, they're looking for loud exhausts on cars, so they'll pull you over for that. Inspections, your tint. If you guys have the tint is too dark, they don't like that. And you got to realize, again, going back to the officer's point of view, they don't like tint that's so dark where they can't see in.
Their own
Because
safety.
if they're coming up to a vehicle at night again, they have no idea what's going to happen as soon as you roll down that window. If they're going to have a gun in their face or whatever it is.
Right.
So from their point of view, that's what they're concerned about, and that's why they the officers don't like the tint tickets. And we have a couple of judges who, believe it or not, that's their pet peeve is tinted windows. And you would think there's a lot more violations out there to have a pet peeve about. Mine is red lights. I can't stand people who blow red lights because there's so many accidents involving people who blow a red light, and they're dangerous,
Right.
especially at these T intersections where, I don't know about you guys, but we're close to Merrick Road over here. You come out of a side street, especially early in the morning, people are just blowing the red light like it's nothing. It did happen to me the other day. I caught up to the guy, I pulled him over. I go, "Hey, bro, you just passed the red light." And he's like, "Oh my God, I didn't even realize it." I'm like, "Wake up. You could have, hit a kid crossing the street trying to get to school. There's a school right
most
over here."
people are just distracted. I mean, the number one cause of accidents is driver
It's
distraction.
distraction, absolutely. But look how many distractions we have in the car now. We have iPhones, we have cell phones, we have iPads and GPS devices and all sorts of stuff. And you just got to realize we didn't have that 20, 25, 30 years ago. Yeah. We had none of those distractions. The only distraction we had in the car is the radio.
Right,
That
and
was
they
it.
keep making cars easier for you to have distractions. Like the lane changer thing that runs an alarm if the car leaves the lane that you're in, and automatic braking.
Yeah, my car has that.
Yeah, automatic braking. Like soon you're just going to get in. There's going to be a smiley face there, and you're going to drive to your destination.
You're only going to be able to start the car. Yeah, it's pretty much what's going to pretty much happen.
Right.
Now, my idea with the automatic braking, let's say I'm trying to overtake somebody and I get too close to the car in front of me and then I try to switch lanes. Is it going to still jam on the brake
Yes.
when I try to do that?
It
Yes.
does it to me.
Yeah, which
It does it
to me
dangerous.
that could be putting you in a little
Right.
dangerous situation,
Absolutely.
right? Yeah,
Absolutely.
All right.
All right. So somebody gets a ticket. What's their next step?
Next step, plead not guilty.
Now, do they plead? Do you plead?
Sure. If they call my office, which a lot of people tend to do at the last hour, I call them last minute Larrys. They call me, I have court tomorrow. What should I do? Okay. No problem. Fax me a copy of the ticket, email it to me, take a picture on your cell phone, send it to my cell phone. We'll plead not guilty, and we'll get you a court date. And at that point in time, then we'll have the opportunity to go to the court, conference the case with the prosecutor and the judge, and work out hopefully something with low points and no points at all.
Right.
So that would be the procedure over there, and it really depends on the jurisdiction that we're in.
Do you have anything on your site at ticketproblems.com?
In terms of telling people what to do, I like to refer to my business like a turnkey operation. Call us as soon as you get the ticket. We plead not guilty for you. We get the conference date or the trial date, depending on what court we're in. And basically, we go to court for you, and we call you with the results, whether it's a week later or 2 years later, because it's
you're
in the
very
traffic
diligent in my
violation
case.
bureau. We always follow up. I haven't
Absolutely.
missed a case, and that's really what people are paying you for.
Yeah.
People are paying you for a service. You want to do the service, call them as soon as it's finished with the good news or bad news, and close out the file, and you move on to the next
Honestly,
one.
before I even met you tonight, your office and the customer service is through the roof.
Yeah, Manny's fantastic. I have one
He is.
one assistant, and he is phenomenal.
I mean, I thought I would have to call and remind you guys, like, I do have court coming up, and Manny was like, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no,
Frank's
we're all
gonna
over it.
appear and blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah.
No.
And
I
was
mean, I would have to say for probably the past 8 years, I've been referring people to you on a regular basis.
Yes, and I do appreciate the referrals. Thank you.
And not everybody has had a good result. I haven't had any complaints from anyone whatsoever, which is great for you.
Absolutely, that's good to hear.
Yeah,
because
and-
that's what we pride ourselves on.
I mean,
You know?
I've had good results on the few that I've had here and there. Luckily, knock on wood, I
Right.
haven't had too many to deal with. I mean, I actually had gotten a ticket not that long ago, which I didn't even know I could get. I had a Nissan Cube that was wrapped for my business and had regular passenger plates on it, and I got pulled over on the State Parkway. Now, for our listeners out there, the state parkways in New York State are for passenger vehicles only. They're not for commercial vehicles, not for trucks. And out here, we have a lot of trucks that get stuck under the overpasses all the time, and that's always a big hazard. And I'm sure you've dealt with some of those tickets.
Right.
I had gotten pulled over because my vehicle was wrapped with an advertisement saying that I had a commercial vehicle on the parkway. And I'm sitting there arguing with the trooper, absolutely not, because I have passenger plates. It's registered to me. You're crazy. And he said, okay, well, I'll see you in court. And sure enough, I sent you the ticket, and you were able to get it worked out. But I had absolutely no clue.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I had a car wrapped also. I had a BMW X5, and it said "Got Tickets" on it. And, of course, that was a target for all the state troopers and police to pull you over there. But, again, you're not supposed to be on the parkways with, even though we were able to register a passenger vehicle because it's a passenger vehicle. Once you put a sign on it and it's promoting some sort of business, it's considered commercial purposes.
Any type of sign. So
Any
if you
type
had,
of
if you had a
sign.
banner, like, for instance, on the back window of my Jeep right now, it says artofrapny.com.
A banner, I'm really not sure if he would issue a
I
ticket
think it's kind
for
of a
that.
gray area.
It is a gray area.
I mean, it's not
If
plastered
you
on
had-
the doors, and it's not, phone numbers and things like that.
Right.
I think that's where you kind of cross the
I
line.
think that's where, if you have some sort of magnet sticker that you put on the side of the door, and it has the name of the business, the phone number, the address, and some more information about the particular business, then I think that's where it crosses the line.
Yeah, now I just bought a new vehicle, so you're going to be seeing more of me coming soon, I'm sure, because I'm going to be getting some more tickets.
What'd you
now.
get? What kind of vehicle?
I bought a Polaris Slingshot. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
No.
But
I'll show you a picture of it.
It's a 3-wheel vehicle. It has a vehicle drivetrain from a Chevy vehicle. It's a stick shift, steering wheel, 2 seats, but it's registered as a motorcycle. Now, I have a motorcycle license, so I'm not concerned about that. But I can't see myself wearing a helmet in this damn thing. Now, because it has a motorcycle plate and registered as a motorcycle, I've been told that you have to follow all the motorcycle laws.
I would tend to agree with that.
Because there is no
Absolutely.
designation in New York State for what's called an autocycle. Now, a lot of other states have autocycles, which then it gets into a gray area. So I'm thinking that I probably should be wearing a helmet in this thing.
I'm thinking
And
so
it has,
also.
It has seatbelts.
It has seatbelts. Now, is the top enclosed? Does it come with
No.
some sort of plexiglass enclosure
No.
to close
No
it up?
top at all.
Yeah,
Zero.
no top at all. You got to wear a helmet.
All right. Well, I'm not. So
All right.
we'll be talking.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So
I refuse
we'll be-
to.
yeah.
So we will be talking in the near future.
All
You know
right.
what I did find out the other day, which I did not know this, that on a motorcycle in New York State, you can have a passenger of any age. But they have to have some. It says, it actually spells out, the law states that they have to have knowledge of the risk of being on a motorcycle.
Okay.
I thought that was
Now,
interesting.
what
'cause
happens if you have a young child? You're able to put that young child in front of you on a motorcycle, or no?
Well, they're not allowed to operate it.
Right,
They're allowed
but-
to be a passenger. Now, me, for instance, it doesn't really describe what I have, which is a side-by-side seat. So I've had my kids in it, so I'm just going to make sure they wear a helmet.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. You don't want the ex-wife coming after you.
No, definitely not. Definitely not.
Absolutely. I can see her starting a family court case for reckless endangerment
Yeah.
with letting your
Wonderful.
kid not wear a helmet on the on that machine.
That's all I need. But
Absolutely.
it's an interesting machine, and there's a lot of different laws that kind of cross over. But, so getting back to speeding, so you would say not guilty.
Right. Getting back to speeding, let's try to narrow it down to a specific court, because we have in Long Island here, I would venture to say we probably have anywhere from 50 to 100 village courts.
Right.
We have our big court here in Nassau County called the Nassau County Traffic Court, which is located at 16 Cooper Street in Hempstead, which is actually right inside my building, but on the other side of the block. Then we have the Suffolk County Traffic Court in Hauppauge. And we also have the Traffic Violations Bureaus, which are located in Queens, Brooklyn, Bronx, Manhattan, and also in Staten Island, which is probably one of the worst traffic violation bureaus out there, because
I've dealt with
we
it.
have this one judge, Judge Levine, and he's an absolute nightmare.
He was the one that did. You took care of that one for me out in Suffolk.
Yes,
when
and
TVB was in Suffolk.
his conviction rate is something like 95 to 99%.
Wow.
And when the officers don't show up for his trial, he gets on the phone
Yes, he
and
did
asks
this.
for their supervisor.
That's what he did with
And
me.
says, Officer Johnson is not in court today.
Are you kidding?
I need him here by 10:30 for this trial.
So check this out. Here's a great story. I get pulled over on a Staten Island Expressway doing, I think, 86 or something in a 50 in one of my Lamborghinis. I get pulled over, and the guy just doesn't want to hear anything. He comes with his big boots on, the whole 9 yards. He's just got his big shit kickers on, his big brimmed hat and all, and he writes me a ticket. So I just kind of like laugh at it, and then I realize that I'm in a 50. I'm like, wow, this could really be damaging. So I happen to know another highway patrolman in Staten Island. So I get him on the phone. He's like, who wrote the ticket? I tell him, he goes, don't worry about it. I'm going to take care of it. Everybody's got a friend in New York. He says, don't worry, I'm going to take care of it. So now he tells me the first time to postpone it. So that's why I never called you on this until the last minute. So I go and postpone it. Then I turn around and I go there for the next court date, and he assures me it's taken care of. The other officer shows up. We go in front of the judge, wonderful Levine, and he says, I'm sorry, Judge. I have no recollection of this ticket. I must have lost my notes. And he's like, well, you better go into the lobby and find your notes, and I'm going to give your supervisor a call.
Wow.
And he actually called the supervisor. He said, I know what's going on here. This is a conviction. So
Incredible, right?
Yeah. So I get, all of a sudden, I get a call from my friend who called the other patrolman who said, listen, this is a problem. He wants a conviction. My friend can't take a chance. He doesn't
Yeah.
want to get in trouble, this and that. I'm like, shit. He said, do this. Ask for a postponement, put up this little bit of like $50
bond, $40 bond.
Yeah, $40
Right.
bond, and get another court date and see what you can get worked out. Now, I was on the cusp of losing my license if I got convicted of this wild ticket. I mean, that's what, 8 points?
Yeah, it's an 8-point speed.
Yeah, so I was going to go way over the threshold, even with my safe driving course, knocking 3 points off and this and that. So that's when I called you and I said, listen, we got a problem. And your exact words were, yes, you do.
Yes.
Nah.
And you said, I can get you.
I think I probably told you I can plead you guilty in a much friendlier
in a
jurisdiction.
friendlier jurisdiction, and you won't lose your license, but you're going to be at the threshold for quite some time.
Correct, because Judge Levine, with an 86 and a 50, he wanted to suspend your license. Now, the
yeah.
problem with a court-ordered suspension of your license is that you are not eligible for a restricted license.
Right, for
You
a
can't
conditional,
go
right.
to the Department of Motor Vehicles and apply for a restricted license if the judge says, sorry, I suspended your license. I think you're a danger on the road. You're not going to get a license. As opposed to pleading you guilty in a friendly jurisdiction with a better judge who's not going to suspend your license. DMV may suspend it, but at that point in time, you're eligible for a restricted license, so at least you can get back and forth to work, and you're not going to lose your job or your livelihood.
Well, I didn't lose my license. You helped me with that, and then ever since then, I've not had a conviction in New York State.
Good.
It's funny because when I got my tickets, I called Seth and I was like, "What do you got?" And he was like, "I got somebody good." And I was like, "Yeah? How good?" He was like, "Well, what'd you do?" I said, "Well, I was driving in the shoulder." And he said, "I got you." And I said, "Yeah, you got me?" He said, "I got you." I said, "Okay, no problem." So he was like, "All right, I'm going to text you his number. Give him a call." And then he was like, "Tell him I sent you." And I was like, "All right." So I called. I guess I spoke with Manny, and he was like, "Yeah, don't worry about it."
Not a problem.
Yeah.
Right? Not a problem. Now, there is a big discrepancy between the courts. So, for example, if you get your ticket here in Nassau County, it should most likely be returnable at one of the Nassau County Traffic Court at 16 Cooper Street. In terms of what your options are over there, some people decide you can just plead guilty by mail. I think it's a big mistake, unless it's a non-moving violation. If it's an unregistered motor vehicle, seatbelt tickets are still no points associated with it. But believe it or not, the unregistered motor vehicle and the seatbelt violations still show up on your DMV
Insurance?
record.
Yeah, and they
so
stay
sometimes they
forever.
affect your insurance rate, so you have to be careful with that.
Seatbelt stays like a DWI.
It does for the insurance purposes.
Yep.
They want to increase it. Your
Absolutely,
insurance.
because they're like, "All right, this guy's going to die. We're going to have to pay out." So
Right, yeah, because he's not wearing a seatbelt. Or
Right.
the cell phones. They're also surcharging
Cell phones
people.
now they're charging,
Yeah,
yeah.
they're surcharging the insurance rates for cell
Really?
phone violations.
And I am so
Absolutely.
guilty of being on my phone 24/7.
Everybody is.
Yeah.
Everybody is, because you can't
I got
get
caught
work
the
done.
first week that they put that into effect. I got caught in Queens. I was in dead stop traffic, and legit, I wasn't on my phone. I was just holding it, looking at the GPS, looking for better routes.
Right.
And I guess the cop, it was on the Grand Central Parkway. You know where the gas station's right in the middle?
Yes,
right
by the mobile
Francis Lewis
station, yeah.
Boulevard? Yeah. So I think he was sitting there because usually I have a pretty good sense to look for cops,
Right.
And he just came out into the traffic that was already moving 1 mile an hour and put on the lights behind me and made a whole big production of it and pulled me over. And I was like, "I'm not speeding now. Like, what could I possibly be getting pulled over for?" And he was like, "Yeah, you were on your phone." I was like, No, I was just on the GPS." And he was like, "Yeah, well, that's the the violation."
Right.
And I was like, "Wait a second, you can't be on your phone." And he was like, "You cannot touch an electronic device or have an electronic device in your hand."
That's correct. They just
Yes.
revamped the whole section of the VTL specifically for cell phone violations. Now it reads any handheld electronic device.
Yeah.
So it can be an iPad, it can be an iPod, it could be a GPS.
It could be a Garmin. Yeah.
An
if
electric
you're-
shaver.
If you're holding it in your hand, you're guilty of it. That's it. And everybody calls me up and they're so frustrated because they're like, "I wasn't on the phone, Frank. I wasn't talking on the phone." Like, you don't even have to be talking on the phone.
I know, like, just in the case of Bruce Jenner having that accident, they're looking at all sorts of cell phone records now for accident investigations and seeing if your cell phone was being used and if you were on the phone and things of that nature, because they're using it to incriminate people.
Absolutely, you're using it for liability.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and it definitely has changed the personal injury aspect of an attorney's project, because now anytime we do depositions involving personal injury cases, we're like, "Do you have a cell phone?" "Yes." "Well, you wanted it at the time."
Wow.
And a lot of people, unfortunately, I remember years ago when I used to do some personal injury work, I was doing a deposition. I said, did you have a cell phone?" She goes, "I don't recall." And then we kept asking some other questions. And then towards the end, I'm like, "Oh, by the way, how did you leave the scene?" She goes, "Oh, I called my sister and she gave me a ride." I'm like, "Wait, didn't you just tell me 10 minutes ago you didn't, you weren't sure of whether or not you had a phone or not?" I'm like, "I'm going to request the records now because maybe you might have caused the accident while being on the phone." And I've personally witnessed a couple of accidents, real bad accidents, even in Hempstead. People on the phone, they're distracted. They hit a stopped car that stopped at a light. And unfortunately, some girl was crossing the road just at that moment, got flown into the air, flipped over, landed on her face. Believe it or not, I thought she died, but the girl survived. She was a little heavy set. I think that's what kind of helped her out.
Little cushion.
A little cushion.
Yeah, for fat
Yes.
people.
Yeah, not even a broken arm. So from my point of view, with personal injury, doing some person, I'm like, "Oh, this seems like a good case." And then she was perfectly fine.
That's
so I'm
crazy.
like, all right, that is nuts. But again, they're a big distraction on the roads. But getting back to the Nassau County Traffic Court, so you have the option plead guilty by mail. Don't recommend it. Option 2, most of the times we can make a request for what we call supporting depositions. A supporting deposition.
Now this, even though we're talking about Nassau County and Long Island in New York, this pretty much carries over nationwide.
Nationwide, because it's a national criminal type of request when we have either a criminal or a quasi-criminal type of case, which is a traffic violation.
Right.
Most states do allow you to request a supporting deposition,
okay.
except the traffic violations bureaus, because you're not entitled to supporting deposition.
You're not
over
entitled
there
to anything there.
because technically they're not a court; they're a division of the Department of Motor Vehicles.
It's administrative,
and it's an administrative proceeding, not a criminal proceeding.
It is the most unfriendly place I've ever experienced in my life.
It absolutely is.
You walk in and say, "So, you want to tell me what happened?" Well, I wasn't. Okay, guilty. Well,
That's it.
But I didn't. It doesn't matter. You're guilty.
Goodbye. Go pay the fine.
But
$90.
wait, I didn't even get to. It doesn't matter. You're guilty.
Too late.
And it's
Yep.
like the most annoying thing in the world. It's like a bad breakup with a girlfriend. It's like, listen, we're broken up. Okay, I'll see you at 9:00. No, we're not going out. No, okay, 9:30 is better. And it's like you're talking to the wall there. It's absolutely horrific.
Yes.
Okay, so you plead not guilty.
We plead not
you
guilty.
Get a supporting deposition.
We request a supporting deposition. The office here in New York has 30 days to send it to the office once we request it. 95 times out of 100, he does not send it, and then we're able to file a motion to dismiss for no supporting deposition.
Nice.
Ticket's completely dismissed, no points,
Nice.
no fines. And then in the 5% of the cases where he does send it, we look at it closely, and basically what happens is, I believe there's probably someone in police liaison who basically completes the form for the officer, and all he does is sign it at the bottom, and he doesn't really check it. So we check it over, we look at it, and 9 times out of 10, it's defective. They don't put in enough information. For example, like let's say a speeding ticket. If he pulls you over, he has to put in the supporting deposition how he estimated your speed.
Right.
Did he catch you with laser? Did he pace you and follow behind you for a distance of, let's say, a mile? Did he get you with radar? Or did he do what we call a visual estimation? Here in New York, a visual estimation by itself with the police officer is enough to substantiate a conviction for a speeding ticket.
Because they're trained, in all these techniques.
That's actually how I got out of
I have an
speeding
interesting.
tickets.
I have an interesting question. A lot of people over the years have told me that if a ticket is defective, meaning they write the wrong plate number, they put your car as black and it's really white, is that reason enough to dismiss a ticket?
No,
It's not. That's a total... Okay.
Yeah,
because
it's not.
there's all these different myths that people say, they spelled my name wrong. It's got to get dismissed.
Doesn't happen.
Doesn't
We go
exist.
into the court, we make a request to dismiss the ticket. The judge looks at us and goes, we're going to allow the officer to amend the ticket to put in the correct date of birth or whatever it is. If the information is completely wrong, the name is wrong, the date of birth is wrong, the driver's
License
ID
plate,
number
everything,
is wrong, the vehicle information is wrong, then we can make an application to dismiss it. But there has to be a lot of information wrong with it for a judge to go along with a dismissal.
Okay.
And it's an individual basis also. You have to realize, besides the officers having discretion, the judges have a tremendous amount of discretion in what they think is
lead way to
is
make mistakes.
good or not good. Correct. So we talked about motions to dismiss. If the motion gets denied for any reason, we have to go back to court. We usually can put it on what we call the conference calendar. The conference calendar in Nassau County is where we go in, speak with the prosecutor to get a reduction, hopefully down to no points, in exchange for a fine. Then we go in to see the judge, and he accepts it or doesn't accept it, depending on what happens. And then the other option is if you think you're still not guilty, you always have the ability to go to trial, where the officer's going to come in, he's going to testify. You have the opportunity to cross-examine that officer and ask him questions. You have the opportunity to testify on your own behalf. Which we kind of steer away from because, especially in speeding tickets,
Incriminating, yeah.
a lot of people, the first question the judge or the prosecutor asks in a speeding trial, okay, sir, if you don't think you were doing 85 in a 55, how fast do you think you were going?
Right.
And I can't tell you how many times we've had clients go,
60.
I was doing 82 in a 55, and he goes, guilty, we're done. That's it.
Well, there's an interesting question. If you get pulled over by a cop, what is your recommendation if a cop says, how fast do you think you were going? Do you tell them the exact speed you were going?
There's a little bit of like a difference of opinion. Some people will tell you, shoot the guy straight. If you shoot him straight and he appreciates you telling him the truth, he may give you a pass, which is a possibility.
That's what I do. Unless it's something absurdly
I met a
fast.
judge who got a speeding ticket upstate, and the trooper basically harassed her and said, do you know how fast you were going? She goes, I'm a judge. I know exactly how fast I was going, and I'm not going to tell you how fast I was going because you're going to put it in the statement at the bottom of the ticket.
Right.
And he got infuriated that she said that and issued the ticket anyway. But most of the time, you try to shoot these guys straight when you can. Okay. Absolutely.
All right, so that's pretty much about speeding tickets. That pretty much sums it up. I mean, listen, I do these events and rallies, and there's always guys that get speeding tickets. So every event that I have, you always get a phone call after, which even though this podcast is going to air around May 30th, we actually have one this coming Sunday, April 26th. So be prepared to get some phone calls on April 27th.
All right, good.
So now moving on from that, I know a big thing in the public eye nationwide, and it also runs rampant here on Long Island and in the New York metropolitan area, is DWI, DUI, alike, whether it involves alcohol, drugs, impairing the ability to drive a car. And I'm just curious as to, I want to bring that up, not because I'm interested in going out there getting bombed and getting behind the wheel, but from what I've seen, and it's become, the penalties have become more severe over the years. And now it just seems that, if you get arrested for a DUI in New York, or in this jurisdiction, in Nassau County specifically, this is what's going to happen. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. The results are always the same, depending on how severe the DUI is. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. I would 100% agree with that. You have to realize when I started this 25 years ago, we would go in and conference a case, and you also have to take into account that throughout the last 25 years, we've had major changes in the DWI statutes, laws, where 25 years ago, the blood alcohol content, I believe, was about 0.12 was for a DWI. Anything below that
is pretty bomb.
Was probably, for an average sized guy, 6, 7 beers, maybe 8 beers, something like that, plus a shot or two.
I remember being a kid. This is a few years back. Anyway, this is about 20 years ago. I remember getting pulled over by a state trooper, and I was bombed. I'll admit it. But back then, the penalties were not even known. And I got pulled over, and he said, all right, he goes, listen, you seem like a decent guy. How far do you live from here? I said, about 5 minutes. I'll follow you home. Make sure you get there safe. And it was no big deal. They used to tell people, stay on the side of the road. Just don't drive, walk it off. But now
it doesn't happen anymore.
It doesn't happen. I mean, you see in the news every day. Lately it's been crazy with this Leandra's law, with so many people driving around wasted with their kids in the car. And also you see a lot of law enforcement being arrested all the time for doing it themselves.
Absolutely.
There's zero tolerance for that.
Because that's the fringe benefits.
It shouldn't be a double standard. That's really what it comes down to. So throughout the last 25 years, the DWI's laws have been getting much, much stricter. And I attribute that also to the sheer volume of cars that we have on the road. Mm-hmm. 25 years ago, let's say we had 1 million cars on the roads. And it's doubled or tripled since then. And I think that's also why you have a lot more stories coming into the headlines where people are getting killed by drunk drivers, et cetera, is because we have a lot more drivers. We have a lot more people on Long Island. Again, 9 million people just living on this little tiny island that's 20 miles wide, 120 miles long. It's crazy. That's a lot of people.
That's outside of New York City?
That's outside of New York City. That's outside of New York City.
Wow.
You go on to the 2012, the census that they had taken in 2012, and it's 7.5 million people, but then you have to take into account all the other people here who are not here legitimately.
Right.
So there's got to be another 2 million people because they all come here for the opportunity to work.
Right, absolutely.
And I don't take that away from them. They want to have a better life for themselves and for their family.
Everybody wants
and stuff
a better
like
life.
that.
Yeah.
But it's to the detriment of Long Island because now we just have too many people here. I always say to people, imagine if something happens here on Long Island. How are you getting off this island?
You're not.
There's only 2 bridges. Yeah. Okay. Now Seth lives here. I think it's on. You have a waterfront house. Yeah. He has a waterfront house here, and we're going to be jumping on his boat to get off of Long Island because there's no way you're going to drive off of Long Island here. No, absolutely not. We have the Verrazano, we have the GW, and even on a good day, it's a 2-hour delay. So there's no way you're going to do that. But in terms of the DWIs, they break it down here in New York into 3 levels. We have 0.06, 0.07, which is, when I say the numbers, it's that blood alcohol content level, which is fairly low. It's probably 2, 3, 4 beers. Yeah. That will be considered driving while ability impaired. That right now is still strictly a violation of law. It's not a crime. It's a violation of law. If you're convicted of it, it's a loss of a license for 3 months. Years ago, we used to be able to get these reduced down to unreasonable speeding tickets. Yeah. But because of Kathleen Rice and her new guidelines and policies, you can't even get a reduction down from that. So the only other option is you either plead guilty or you take the ticket to trial. And that's it.
They are stricter, though, on Long Island for DWI cases, right?
Much stricter.
Yeah,
much
absolutely.
stricter. I've gotten to the point where we've been dealing with DWIs for 23, 25 years. I don't even want to do them anymore.
But I
Years
mean,
ago,
in terms of compared to the city.
compared to the city, because you got to realize in the city they're dealing
volume.
with. Well, they're also dealing with a lot more serious offenses in the city. They're dealing with rapes and murders and this and that and the other thing else. Nassau County, we're a little, it's a little cushioned here over. It's not that. It's not that many serious crimes are happening here, basically. So they do crack down on the DWIs. Then, as you know, our DWI limit here is .08 in New York. Up to .17 is considered a regular DWI, which is an unclassified misdemeanor and a loss of a license for 6 months.
Over that threshold?
Over that threshold, .18 and higher, they have a new thing called aggravated DWIs, which is still an unclassified misdemeanor. But instead of looking at 3 years probation, now you're looking at what we call split, 30 days jail followed by 3 years probation.
And they're serious about the jail?
Absolutely. The prosecutor asks for jail in almost every single DWI case now.
Wow.
Absolutely.
And there's really zero tolerance. I mean, like I was saying before, there's really no pleading it down. It is what it is.
Years ago, we would be able to get an offer to reduce it down. 9 out of 10 cases, we got a reduction. Now we go in, we have 10 cases, I get a reduction on 1 or 2 cases, and in order to get that reduction, we have to go back to court 10 to 15 times, adjourn the case between 6 to 12 months, conference the case with a supervisor, and get some sort of modified plea that we call a conditional plea, where usually the person will plead guilty to the top charge of driving while intoxicated. They're not sentenced, so it doesn't go on their license, and we adjourn the case for 6 months, and provided they jump through all these hurdles, they go to the Victims Impact Panel class, they take a drinking driving program, they go for maybe some alcohol or drug counseling, then after 6 months, and also have the ignition interlock device installed in the car, then they can come back in 6 months and then vacate your plea and get a reduction.
Interlock?
Oh, that's been going on for
The
some
interlock's
years
been
now.
going on
Now it's
for a
more
while.
mandatory, I think.
Now it's mandatory. The last 2 years,
Long
it's
Island.
mandatory.
Or New York.
Mandatory. You plead guilty to a DWI, you have to have the ignition interlock device installed in your car.
New York.
Now, here's something interesting.
Yes.
There was legislation, I don't know if you heard about this, up in Albany, which is our state capital, where they were trying to put into effect that if you were convicted of a DUI, that you would get a special marking on your license plate. So that if you were traveling down the road, that police could identify you as being a prior DUI, and it was almost being like branded like the scarlet letter.
It's interesting, but I don't think they're going to be able to find
I don't
it.
think
It sounds
so, but
like
that
there's
would
some
be-
sort of discrimination type of thing.
That's what I think.
But
But
especially for what happens to all the first timers. I mean, we
Now-
get a lot of people in the DWI parts. We have 2 parts in Nassau County, Part 7 and Criminal Part 8, where most of the difficult DWIs go to. And you see a lot of just regular people in these parts. We see a lot of drug addicts and alcoholics and stuff like that.
and a
as
lot
well.
of repeat offenders.
A lot of repeat offenders, absolutely.
Are
But
there?
the repeat
Oh,
offenders,
there was just a story the other day. Did you hear about the story in Baldwin, Long Island out here? There was 2 people had an accident. They both took off. So they catch the guy down the block. He crashed into a telephone pole. They arrest him for DUI. He was like 3 times the limit.
Whoa.
And now they're looking for the car that he crashed into. So they backtrack and they find the car over by like a CVS pharmacy. They go inside the CVS pharmacy and they find a drunk woman. Who is it? It's his wife. They had a domestic dispute. They left. They crashed into each other. He crashed into a pole. She's parked in a parking lot with like the fender hanging off the car. And she's walking around drunk as a skunk in CVS. So they lock up the husband and wife both for domestic and DUI. It was absolutely insane.
that is crazy. But at least they have enough sense to take off.
Yeah.
They hit each other and they take off. We have clients all the time coming in. I got in trouble for leaving the scene of an accident. And anytime someone comes into my office for leaving the scene, I'm like, what were you drinking and how much did you have? No, I wasn't drinking anything. I'm like, no. When I see that, I know what
But
happened.
we had a great one. We had a guy that was a member of my Exotics Rally Club, and we were all out one night, and everybody was having a good time, getting a little cheery, and this guy got absolutely annihilated. He hops in his Lamborghini, which was like a $500,000 brand new Lamborghini, which evidently we find out later on that he scammed some mildly
Retarded.
brain damaged guy into buying him this car. The guy was involved in a helicopter. It's a crazy story. Guy was involved in a helicopter crash. He was a multi-millionaire, and this guy conned him out of $500,000 to buy him a car. So now this kid's got the car. We're out one night. He gets drunk. He hops in the car and takes off when everybody's trying to fight him to tell him no. About a half hour later, it turns out I didn't hear my cell phone go off or anything like that. He crashed into an overpass. He got out of the car and he called 911 looking for a tow truck. So he told them where he was, and he was trying to give them like landmarks, and they said, no problem, we'll send somebody right over to you. So the cops came, and then he tried to tell them that he was not driving the car. He said the person that was driving took off. Yet he had all the airbag burns on him and everything.
Right.
It was pretty comical. But
It sounds like it.
so, not that we're trying to help anybody defend anything with a DUI, because I'm strictly against it. But if you were to get pulled over for the suspicion of driving while intoxicated, sometimes people have told me the best thing to do is never admit to anything, don't take a breathalyzer, refuse. Now, I know in New York State you automatically suspend your license for that? Or
They revoke
it?
your
They
license
revoke it.
for a refusal, but it's only the refusal at the station. So if you
Right,
get
'cause
pulled
that's the
over,
real test, right?
That's the real test. That's the breathalyzer that we call the Intoxilizer 5000. That's where you take the test back at police headquarters, and you go from there. But at the scene, we have what we call FSTs, field sobriety tests, which are one is where they hold usually a pen
Right.
in front of your face, and they move it horizontally, and they check your eye pattern. What they're looking for is like a jerky eye movement, and that will tell them either that you're intoxicated or possibly impaired by drugs. So that's what they're looking at for that. You have the heel to toe test and all the other field sobriety tests. You can refuse them. People don't know that they have the opportunity to refuse those
But
tests.
it's an immediate
that's
arrest,
not an
though, right?
automatic
Not
conviction
necessarily.
or
No, not necessarily, because
incrimination.
the officer still has to have what we call probable cause for driving while intoxicated. But inevitably, they'll make it up. They'll pull you over for an unsafe lane change or whatever it is.
Then suspicion.
And the thousands or hundreds of cases that I've represented for people for DWIs, it's always the same thing. Glassy, bloodshot eyes, strong odor of alcohol on the person's breath. Now, who's to say you just didn't put on cologne? You didn't put some of that hand sanitizer that everybody has in their cars now? That has a strong alcohol odor as well. So they always say the same thing. We smell alcohol on you. And then, people ask, have you had anything to drink? Inevitably, they say one. One drink in a police officer's head means 4 or 5, 6 of them.
4 drinks
exactly.
and 2 shots.
So
and,
that's what that usually means.
period of
That's where they go astray to begin with.
If you refuse,
Now you can
it's
refuse
an automatic arrest.
No, you can refuse the field sobriety test. They can't charge you with anything for refusing those tests at the scene. If you refuse to take what we call the PBT, portable breath test, here in New York, they can write you up for a violation of law for refusing to take that PBT, but it's a traffic ticket, and it's going to get sent not to the criminal court, but to one of the traffic courts because it's not a criminal offense.
Not as far as I know.
Correct. So now what happens is they will eventually bring you back to the station,
headquarters.
the headquarters,
Yeah, but
and they're
in
going to make you
cuffs.
take the regular test. Correct. They're
Now,
going to
in
make you
cuffs,
take.
and if
They're
you
going to make you take
refuse
the
that-
regular test.
Yep.
If you
Now,
refuse
if you
that,
refuse
they get
that,
a court order for blood test.
court order. They could get a court order. Most of the time, they're not going to wake up a judge at 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning for a refusal for something like that. So they'll just mark it down as a refusal to take the
And
test.
at that point, your license is
At
suspended.
that point, yes, you're going to get revoked.
Yeah, but
at that point, you're going to get
if
revoked.
you
So usually,
don't-
my advice to most people.
Yeah, what would your advice be?
You get pulled over, refuse
you
the
get
field
pulled
sobriety test. Because I personally think they're dangerous. You're getting pulled over coming out of a bar, let's say, or a restaurant. It's late at night. It's dark. Most of the time, the streets are not that well lit, right? Refuse to take the portable breath test at the scene. So
Right.
you refuse those. Then you get back to the station. That's another hour, 2 hours later.
Right.
Hopefully, if you're smart,
Sober up.
if you had a couple of drinks earlier on in the night and you were smart enough, you say, okay, I got to drive home in an hour or two. I'm not going to drink anymore. And your what we call a BAC, your blood alcohol content level, will be on the decrease at that time. So, and then I tell people, take the test at the station.
Right, but
Right. You should never refuse the final test.
Yeah, never refuse. And it's also,
Inevitably, you're going
discretion.
to get arrested if you are intoxicated.
Correct. They're going to arrest you, but
Now
hopefully
you
at
just
that
have
point in
another
time.
compounded problem of having a revoked license.
Correct. If you take the test and you blow 0.06, 0.07, you scored. You got a driving while ability impaired. You got a violation, and you'll be able to deal with that. But DWIs here
Not
in
that
New
we're
York
trying
State.
to coach anyone
No,
of
you're
how
not.
to drink
But
and drive.
DWIs here in New York State are
Just
big
what your
problem.
rights are.
They're
Your
very,
rights are.
very difficult to deal with these cases.
Yeah.
All right, and if you can
but
avoid
people-
number one, avoid it to begin with.
people should know that if they do refuse that on-site breathalyzer,
The field sobriety
you will
test,
be
yeah.
arrested.
No.
Not at. Well, they're going to take you in.
Yeah,
They're going to
well,
take you in to
that's
the
the
station to
right.
test you.
You're not going in to say
you're
hello to the
still-
chief.
Yeah, but if you didn't have that much to drink and you blow a .05, .04, they got to let you go.
Right.
They have to let you go. What they're probably going to do is write you up for the refusal to take the portable breath test,
which is a violation.
A violation. They'll just send to the traffic court, and that's it. That's all they can write you up for.
And you'll get it down to a parking ticket.
And you get it down there.
Right.
You know, a lot of people also don't realize when you get pulled over on the side of the road for speeding, broken headlight, taillight, you don't have to consent to a search of your vehicle.
I was going to ask you about that.
You absolutely do not have to consent to a search of your vehicle. If, however, the officer, let's see, sees a pound of weed sitting on the passenger seat,
that gives them the right.
Or drugs, or a weapon, and it's in plain view, we call it.
Right.
Then they're entitled to search the vehicle.
Okay.
But if the officer says, "I smell pot," I don't know why you smell pot. Maybe my passenger was smoking it before, but I don't have any weed. Can I search your car? No. That's your answer always.
Now,
they don't have the
can't do
authority.
anything further.
They can't. They can try to
Impound
obtain. No, they can try to obtain a search warrant to search your car. No judge is most likely going to sign off at that again at a late hour.
I had an interesting one in Oregon when I was on one of my rallies cross country. I got pulled over for evading, eluding, 100 and some odd miles per hour, and stop signs, crossing WL lines. There was about 20 infractions. And when they pulled me over, they saw that I had GoPro cameras in the car. And he said, "We want the footage." And I said, "I'm not giving you anything." He said, "Well, you have two choices. You can either give it to me, or we're going to impound the car, and then we're going to take it." So I didn't know what to do. I was on the side of the road. I'm like, "Go ahead, screw it, take it." And all the incriminating evidence was right on there.
Right.
So they checked the videos and everything, and it's actually on YouTube now. You should check it out when you get a chance. Because after the case was all done, they returned the video to me. But at that point, because it was out of state, I was from out of state, they reduced everything, and then they suspended my driving privileges for the rest of my life.
Okay.
So I can no longer drive in Oregon.
All right.
But, and it was like a $1,000 fine. It was kind of like a Mickey Mouse court. But what was interesting was, I didn't know what to do at the time. So you're saying that unless they have some sort of probable cause, which they kind of did, I would say.
Right.
In your case.
Well, yeah, they saw it in the window. It was mounted in the window.
They saw the cameras. Now, getting back to the whole camera thing, what is your suggestion? Because we have a lot of listeners that video their driving antics. I mean, there have been cases where guys are videoing themselves doing 200 miles an hour on the LIE, and then they post it online. I mean, what is your recommendation?
My take on it is probably the biggest mistake you can ever make. If you're going to murder somebody, are you going to take out your camera phone and start videotaping you killing somebody?
No,
of course not. So you're committing a violation. You're committing some sort of misdemeanors on the road. Why would you videotape that?
You're providing evidence.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And a lot of these people like to post videos, and I see it all the time, and they say, "While in Mexico this past weekend, I was doing 200 miles an hour. Ha, ha, ha." And they think that saves them from incriminating themselves. Your opinion?
Not true. Not true. You're gonna figure out where you are when you're taking that video based upon the signage and a whole bunch of other things in terms of the cell phone. They can have all those cell phone records as well.
Your phone everywhere.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I would definitely not recommend that. I don't think it's a smart idea. Absolutely not.
Yeah, I don't do it because I think, I kind of think ahead of things. It just seems so asinine to me.
Right.
But, these guys, they continue to do it, and sooner or later it's going to catch up with them. And God forbid they have an accident, then,
common sense isn't common.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Now, getting back to the DWIs for a quick moment,
Yeah.
I had gone to the civil forfeiture hearing for a client this morning. A lot of people don't realize civil forfeiture is still alive and well here in Nassau County.
Where they can take your car.
Okay, where they can take your car for driving while intoxicated. Their theory on that is that you use this vehicle to commit a crime, that crime being driving while intoxicated, and they're taking the vehicles. We had a situation this morning where we had what we call an innocent non-owner. So we have a car that's titled in one person's name.
Ask you that, yeah.
My client is the driver of his brother's vehicle. And a lot of people register and insure vehicles for other people here, but this was not the case. My client borrowed the vehicle from his brother. We went to the hearing. I thought I had a great, innocent, non-owner defense to it. And then the prosecutor told me that, we're going to have to do a trial. We're going to have to do depositions. And the car was only worth $2,000.
Wow.
And if I'm going to charge, let's say, $1,500 as a flat fee to do a trial for that, it's not worth it to this guy to spend $1,500 to get back a car that's worth $2,000. So right now, they're trying to work out some sort of what we call, stipulations of settlement to try to settle the case. But even for, let's say, a small crappy car for $2,000, Nassau County wanted $1,000 to get this guy's car back. And
Now,
at that point in
is
time,
it normal to seize the car at a DUI?
they're doing it all the time.
They are. Because I remember for a while
it has to be.
it was unlawful.
We had a whole
back and
the
forth.
civil forfeiture law in New York State is constantly changing. The original one was found unconstitutional
They had
because
to
it was too
refund a
vague.
ton of money back to people. It was a big
Refund
mess.
the money, return cars, and it
I
was
bought a lot of
huge,
cars at auction
It
from
was a
that.
huge mess
Yeah.
over there. So they ended up losing out that. Nassau County came in, the legislature revamped the civil forfeiture law, so now it is still alive and well here in Nassau County.
So,
and they
so what you're
will
saying
take
is
your
even
car.
if you're driving somebody else's car, it still can get seized.
It still can potentially get seized.
Wow.
They will seize it. Now, only Nassau County PD is seizing the cars. If you get pulled over on one of the parkways by a trooper, they're not taking the cars.
Gotcha.
They're not taking
They
cars.
just leave it
Only
on the
Nassau
side of the
County.
road, or they impound it for safekeeping.
They impound it, and then you get it back
Right.
a day later, and they're not taking the vehicles.
Interesting.
Absolutely, but that's something to consider when you get in the car and you're going to drive there. You're driving a $100,000 car, $200,000 car. You may want to think twice about taking that $30 cab ride.
Uber's a lot cheaper than a lawyer.
Yeah, it is.
That's what I tell people all the time. I get limos a lot of times, and I go to the city and I'll go drinking and this and that, or I'll take an Uber, or I'll stay over because a hotel room's a lot cheaper than, unfortunately, I don't want to pay you a couple of $1,000s.
Absolutely no, and I don't want to represent you for that. It's not a good situation.
Yeah.
In the city, they're a little bit more lenient, but they're still very, very tough, and they're cracking down on all these DWIs.
Interesting. So is there anything else you want to add about your practice or anything? You can go right ahead. And,
maybe a little bit. I think we were going to try to maybe talk about what to look for when hiring a traffic lawyer.
Okay.
If that's
Sure.
all right with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
First, you want to make sure, I think, that the person's been in business for a while. You don't want to hire someone fresh out of law school to take care of your DWI or your traffic ticket. So you're going to be looking for some maybe 5 to 10 years experience in that particular field, because we do have a lot of attorneys coming from the real estate field, from matrimonial fields, going, oh, there's some money to be made here. And traffic law, let me get in on it. And the person just doesn't have the background or the skill to do that in those particular courts.
Right. You wouldn't use a Toyota mechanic for a Lamborghini.
Absolutely not.
Right.
Absolutely not. So you want to make sure, same thing with the doctors. You're not going to use a brain surgeon to operate on your heart.
Right.
Plus the
you don't
fact
wanna
that
do
you're very familiar with certain judges and
Absolutely. You want to hire somebody. The second
you
thing.
build relationships just
you
like
wanna,
any business.
You want to hire somebody who's in that court every day of the week.
Right.
We know all these judges. There's 15 judges at the Nassau County Traffic Court. We know them well.
Right.
We go to, unfortunately, some of the guys, die over there. We go to their wakes. We go to their fundraisers, whatever they need. We try to support them.
Do the right thing.
Yeah, you're there on a regular basis. For example, I was in Queens this morning. I was out of my sorts. I was in Queens Criminal Court, and I think it took me 2 hours to get my case called. Whereas I go walk into Nassau County District Court, and Frank, what do you need? All right, let's call it. Call the case. I
Right.
just need an adjournment.
So relationships
You're in and out in
definitely
5
make a
minutes.
difference.
Definitely
Absolutely.
help. You also want to make sure the guy charges a flat fee. I don't necessarily agree with those attorneys out there charging hourly rates for traffic tickets. It's not worth it. You're going to spend a fortune paying an attorney an hourly rate to go back and forth to court for you. I strictly do flat fees. You don't want to, again, hire an attorney for an hourly rate or what we call a per diem court appearance fee. Some attorneys will say, okay, you got to pay me $250 per court appearance and I'll go to court for you. You don't want to really do that. You want to lock them into a flat fee regardless of how many times they go to court, which is what I do. You also want to make sure the attorney doesn't have any complaints or grievances against them. And an easy way to check on that is you go online, you go to the Office of Court Administration. There's a little pull-down tab for attorneys. You click on attorneys, you type in their first name, their last name, and it'll tell you if they have any complaints pending against them, which is good. Because just like in any business, there are good guys and there are bad guys.
It's like Better Business Bureau for attorneys.
Right, that's it. So you want to take a look at that. I think we talked about this, or maybe we discussed it before we started. Is you don't want to fall for what I call some of these used car sales tactic guys, where it's a high pressure, high sales type of position, where they make you hire them before they let you leave their office. My position is we're here to help people. We're going to educate you about the traffic law first. We're going to tell you what we can do for you, what our expectations are, and give you a fee quote. Then the ball's in your court to hire us, not hire us.
Right.
And that's how we do it. I don't like walking into a store, a furniture store, where these people are pushing something on you and you really don't want it. I don't
Right.
like doing that to people. I don't like when people do it to me. So I just don't do it.
Yeah, very fair.
So that's the way you have to be about that. Anything else, Seth? What else?
I think we pretty much covered what our listeners are probably going to be most interested in. I would say that the majority of our listeners are really going to be getting mostly speeding tickets and no front plate tickets and window tint tickets. I mean, you probably see more tickets from Ocean Parkway out here than anywhere else, during the spring and summer.
That's because it's the straightaway down there.
Yeah, it's like the Long Island drag strip.
It is, but unfortunately, they know that that's a spot where people go fast, and they intentionally reduce the speed down over there to 35 miles an hour. Which, granted, most of the good prosecutors at the Nassau County Traffic Court will take that into consideration when giving us a reduction. Because you'll see some ridiculous speeds down there
unless
in the 35 zone.
You live in Gilgo Beach. Right.
Yeah, unless you live over there. But most of the people you look at it, you're like 70 and a 35. It sounds pretty bad because it sounds like it's a little residential area,
right?
Until you see Ocean Beach Park,
right? Yeah, it doesn't have a good tone to it.
Correct.
Can I ask you one more thing?
Yeah,
sure. I've had some experience with Nassau. I think 16 Cooper Street, Nassau Court, and what they have there, and I don't know if they still have it. What they have there that they don't have in Queens, and I'm from Queens originally, is like a plea bargaining system. Like you can go in and speak to a representative of the court, and he'll offer you X amount of options, and then you choose one and go forward.
And you go from there.
Yeah.
The city doesn't have that.
No.
Right.
No, it's either plead guilty by mail or go to trial.
Yeah, that's it.
And that's it.
Basically, with the city, you have to get lucky that the officer's not going to show up.
Correct.
Is what it comes down to.
Right.
And
or if it's a bad ticket like mine was in Staten Island, then you hire somebody like Frank who gets a change of venue.
You pull it out of that judge's hands, so you can't.
But they still have
suspend
that in Nassau here.
They still have that in Nassau. I don't think that's ever going to change. Suffolk County used to be a traffic violations bureau, which they changed a couple of years ago. Once they changed, they were fantastic. The deals were great. However, the fines are crazy out there. We can pretty much get any speed 85 miles per hour in a 55 zone and lower reduced down to a parking ticket, but the fines are $480.
That's worth it though.
Okay,
you got no points on
pay it
you.
I don't know, but then
Absolutely.
for me, it's hard to justify a fee.
Right.
Most traffic tickets, on average, we charge between $300 to $500. So you get the people in their head, and I don't want to steer. I never steer people wrong. I always want to give them more information and let them make their own decisions. But you get a person, I'm charging $400 for that speeding ticket, and then I tell them the fines are going to be excessive. Just to give you a heads up. And they say, how much? I said, $480. They round it off to $5. They throw my fee in there. Before you know it, we're up to $1,000.
Right.
And it's a lot. It's a lot of money for these people.
No increase on your insurance and no points on your license. So
it's relative.
I'll take it all day long.
Absolutely.
I mean, a lot of my out-of-state tickets that I got when I was rallying cross-country, I actually made the phone calls myself and spoke to the prosecutors basically saying, look, it's Arizona. I'm not coming back. What can you do for me?
Right.
And most of the time they would say, well, there's not much we're going to do for you and this and that. You're from out of state. I said, look, charge me $1,000. Just make it go away. You're willing to pay $1,000? And, of course, it goes away.
They work out a deal with you.
What's
Absolutely.
interesting enough is in Arizona specifically, I got a ticket for following too closely, and that's considered an arrest. It's actually on my criminal record.
In Arizona.
As an arrest.
I don't understand that.
Crazy. Absolutely crazy. I actually got arrested in Connecticut years ago because I was wearing a hat that was for the Suffolk County Sheriff's PBA, and I got arrested for impersonating an officer.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, true story. And here's the funny part.
Karma's a bitch.
Here's the funny part. I get arrested for that. They take me into the station. I'm just sitting there like I'm totally bewildered by this. And a guy comes in, this Hispanic officer, and he says, listen, man, I used to be NYPD in the Bronx. You'll be out of here in a couple minutes. It's all good. So I said, okay, cool. I had to post like a $500 bail myself, and they let me go. It was in Naugatuck, Connecticut. So now I have a court date. So I figured, let me call up, see if I could just take care of this. Can I just pay a fine? They're like, no, you have to appear.
Yeah, that's a criminal charge, yeah.
I didn't realize how much of a criminal charge it was. So now I just go walking into court. This is before I knew more about the law. So I go walking into court, and they call the case, and I just step up, and I'm like, yeah. And they're like, where's your attorney? And I said, for what? I'm like,
I was wearing a hat.
Yeah, I'm like, I was wearing a
hat.
baseball hat. And they're like, you do realize that you could be sentenced to a year in jail. And I said, come on. And they're looking at me like I'm crazy. I'm like, can you give me like 5 minutes? Because unfortunately, I have a criminal attorney here in Long Island. So I call him. I said, what the hell am I supposed to do? And he said, what would you like me to do? You're in Connecticut. All of a sudden, a guy comes up behind me. He goes, hey, you need a lawyer? And I said, yeah, why? He goes, how much money you got on you? I'm like, excuse me? I said to my lawyer on the payphone, I'm like, hold on. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, you got $500? I said, yeah. He goes, I get it taken care of. We go back into court. He gets the case called again. He doesn't even know my name. And he's like whispering to me, what's your name? What's this? How old are you? What do you do for a living? And he's asking me all these questions while I'm in front of the judge.
That's awesome.
And then all of a sudden the judge says, okay, we're going to reduce it down to it was like an open container in public or something like that. And I had to pay like an $85 fine, gave this guy $500, got my bail back, and hightailed the hell out of there.
But that's luck, though. That's luck.
But now, when somebody ran my criminal report nationwide, it shows that I was arrested for criminal impersonation. I was at I have a repossession company, so I was actually at a conference in Florida for the it's called the Allied Convention. It's an association for repossessors, and they had like this big, like 100-inch, like big screen TV, and they were showing these new database searches, and so they were like, "You want to test it out?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." They said you could put your own name in, so I put my own name in, not thinking anything, and all of a sudden it starts coming up criminal. It's giving Connecticut impersonating an officer. I'm like, oh my god! And all these people standing around like, holy shit, look at this guy. Who is this guy? I'm like, I'm not on America's Most Wanted. Let me just go home.
Yeah, but that sounds a little ridiculous that they charge you with something like that.
Yeah, it was pretty.
They would
absurd.
never do that here in New York.
No, definitely not. And
did they know you were Jewish?
No. If they knew that,
absolutely,
they'd be a little leery. So, you know what? I think we're going to move on to a couple of other things. But first, I want to say thank you to Frank for joining us on the podcast. We'll get back to you in a couple of minutes on the closing. You can give everybody your information on how to reach you. But just to give our listeners a couple of updates on things that are coming up. First and foremost, Car Lifestyle, who that's our brand for the podcast and for Instagram, has recently hit 2.2 million followers. It wasn't that long ago where you hit 2 million followers.
Correct. And yesterday we were recognized by the British GQ
magazine,
right, as one of the top 10 automotive accounts to follow on Instagram.
Which is a huge accomplishment. Something to be very proud of.
Absolutely.
Good for you. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
And then I'll go into a couple of events coming up for Exotics Rally. Of course, this is airing on May 30th, so June 18th is going to be Blackstone Steakhouse Exotic Car Show. That starts at 4 p.m. until whenever. You can find more information online at exoticsrally.com under events. We also have a Pocono Track Day experience on July 12th, which goes from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. It's a half day. It's very reasonable. It's $125 if you're going to be doing the oval, and then $125 if you're going to be doing some drag racing. $200 if you do both, and it's for a full-on experience. Bring your own car, bring a helmet, get on the track, and see what your car can do in a safe environment without the threat of being pulled over.
Of having to hire an attorney.
Frank.
Right.
And that's a big thing I always suggest to people. You know what? If you want to go out there and you want to act like a moron, get on a track and do it with some skill and with some instructors.
Yeah, lessen the liability of jeopardizing somebody else's life.
Right, not just your own. So we don't condone speeding on the street. And lastly, I'm just going to give a quick plug for my dear friends Ice-T and Mick Benson, who is Ice-T's business manager in New York. They just initiated the Art of Rap Tour, which is going to be on July 18th and 19th. You can find out more information at artofrapfest.com. Now, this is art, A-R-T, of rap, R-A-P, fest.com. And you can find out more about that. I will be out there at the concerts in California supporting them. And if you're going to be out that way, hit us up because we can link up. Or I'm sure there's going to be some crazy after parties and things like that. You can come say hello. And if you're in the area, I can get you a candid shot with Ice-T and maybe an autograph. But in closing, we always go around the room and everybody plugs themselves. So we're going to start with our guest, Frank Desousa. And you can go ahead and tell everybody how to reach you, your website, phone numbers, anything you care to add.
Well, thank you very much for having me here. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
If you guys need any help with any tickets, you can find me. My address is 24 Main Street in Hempstead. We're upstairs on the second floor. The phone number is 516-505-7715. And again, it's the law office of Frank Desousa. The website address is ticketproblems.com. Best way to really reach me is through the phone, though, for a free consult. We can definitely help you out with whatever you need. In terms of what we do, we either reduce or eliminate your points. We save your license from suspension or revocation. Most times we can save you a lot of money in paying the fines and the driver assessment responsibility fees. Again, with most violations, you don't have to come to court unless it is a criminal charge, and we'll as well save you some insurance fees and keep you out of jail. Thank you again for having me.
And thank you for keeping me out of jail.
You're welcome.
T?
T-minus, on Instagram, I'm T-minus TMINUS _NYC _car lifestyle.
A lot of underscores.
Yeah. That's only because they don't allow spaces. And if you put T-minus and NYC together, people are like, what language is he talking? So, yeah. There's a big music producer out of Canada named T-minus. So I had to add NYC next to my name, or people would be like, do you produce music also? No, I'm not a DJ. But yeah. You can always follow us on Car Lifestyle. That's at CARLIFESTYLE. Car-lifestyle.com, YouTube,
Facebook,
obviously.
Twitter, Pinterest, Flickr. You've got
iTunes.
everything, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, and I'm Seth Rose, and I can be found at Exotics Rally on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Art of Rap, and mine is spelled ARTOVWRAPNY, and that's on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And that's about it. If anybody has any questions, wants to add content to our show, you can email us at askclpodcast@gmail.com. Hit us up. Let us know what you want to talk about. We'll be bringing you more exciting content in the near future.
Right, and if we select your question, we'll read it out loud on our next podcast and credit you.
And I think that's about it. That's a wrap. Thank you for listening. Tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend. Download. It's free.
Absolutely. Free is good.
Free is great. On
Free
iTunes.
$99.
Car Lifestyle Podcast on iTunes. Thank you.
Car Lifestyle.